Thank you. Yeah, my name's Eve and I'm a 21-year-old student, currently in my third year of studying politics at the University of Edinburgh. And I'm really, really thrilled to have been asked to speak today on behalf of Tackling Elitism. Tackling Elitism is a student-led operational group specifically focused on exposing and dismantling elitism at the University of Edinburgh. So today I'm going to first begin by providing some context to the origins and work that Tackling Elitism does. I'm then going to read out some testimonies from members of Tackling Elitism so that I can offer a variety of experiences of individuals that are involved. And then finally, I thought I would go on to talk a little bit about my own involvement with the group, as well as offering maybe a personal account of what it has been like for me as a widened participation student at university, and how becoming more aware and comfortable with my own identity has impacted how I perceive my other areas of interest, specifically within the arts. Okay, so I'm just gonna get started. So Tackling Elitism is a student body founded in October 2019 by the then Vice President Welfare Una Miller to discuss the issue of elitism at the University of Edinburgh. So Tackling Elitism began as both a medium of activism and a space for widening participation students to discuss their experiences. Now, widening participation, which I'm going to say quite a lot, is an official term used by many universities, as lots of people on this call will be more than aware. But Edinburgh University specifically states it includes those of us who are low income, working class, first generation, care leavers, estranged students, mature students, and those from low progression schools and BAME intersections. Now, my own personal identity falls into the categories of being a first generation student, meaning neither of my parents have undergraduate degrees, and I'm also from a low income family and a low progression postcode. Now, I borrow some of the following descriptions of how Tackling Elitism evolved from Daniel Green, who is one of our writing team members. So he says that Tackling Elitism began as a space to discuss frustrations with elitist discrimination and microaggressions. Its specific focus is to channel these energies into making institutional change from the bottom up. Therefore, the group does not just exist as a support network, but actually is an active force seeking to dismantle the culture of elitism at Edinburgh University. Also, Tackling Elitism does not exist within the traditional society framework that you might have come across at your own higher educational institutions. And what I mean by that is it rejects a hierarchical structure. So it rejects a president, a vice president, an executive committee, and then a committee, and then ordinary members. So instead of following that framework, it operates as a more inclusive collective with widened participation students at its very core. So at the moment, Tackling Elitism is currently working on a number of different campaigns. For example, based upon Nazia Parveen's Guardian article, which was based on a report by Lauren White entitled "Students from Northern England Facing Toxic Attitude at Durham University," where we've read this article, discussed it as a group, and we're now working on a Scottish students campaign to highlight the experiences of classism, elitism, and marginalisation that Scottish students may feel at the University of Edinburgh. We're also working closely with widened participation departments within different schools at the university to help tailor and improve their widened participation approaches. And recently this included a focus group specifically on microaggressions experienced by widened participation students. So now I'm going to move on to some testimonies from different people within the Tackling Elitism group itself. Hopefully some of my voice isn't just the only one that you hear, because this group has so many wonderful people involved in it. So Tackling Elitism member Madeline discusses how the group fosters a community, providing an inclusive space to chat through the sometimes overbearing feelings that being at a big elite uni can cause. And then Bojana stresses the importance of tackling elitism to her, stating that the amount of elitist culture she has seen at the university is outrageous. By being part of the group, she is able to push widen participation issues into the limelight and support those who have had their voices silenced. She states that growing a community specifically for widened participation students is fundamental to the wider aim of dismantling elitist attitudes across academia. She loves the inclusivity of the group and the fact that this is a space where we can all discuss things without stigma or embarrassment attached to them. And finally, Lauren joined Tackling Elitism because she was really angry about the ignorance towards widening participation students, especially within the university itself, and was really eager to make a move towards proving that we do matter and we need support, and it shouldn't be something that's hidden or avoided, which is why she got involved with the bursary campaign, which aims to raise awareness to the impact that cuts to the university bursary have on widened participation students. Now, I want to expand a little bit on what Lauren has said about the bursary campaign, as this is also really important to me. With the coronavirus pandemic, BAME communities in particular, and those communities in the most deprived areas of the UK have been disproportionately affected. This necessitates extra support, not just the maintenance of the support already available. The University of Edinburgh Means Tested Scholarship is the only reason I was able to return to Edinburgh to continue my studies in September. Since the pandemic, the university has discontinued the University of Edinburgh Scholarship for students that commenced their studies in September and has replaced it with what I believe are rather ironically named Access Edinburgh Scholarship, which has fewer household income bands that award less at every single level. Rectifying this discontinuation is barely the bare minimum that the university needs to be doing. This does not even begin to attempt to counteract the disproportionate effect the pandemic will and has had on widened participation students. This scholarship gave me the opportunity to literally move, which I believe now was vital to my own productivity and engagement with my degree, because what I believe to be symptoms of imposter syndrome that I experience and fight with on a daily basis. To not physically be in Edinburgh highlights to me the possibility that I maybe don't belong here. To be physically present in the city, not just on campus, forces me in the most simplistic sense to belong. And I really hope to continue and expand upon the work being done to counter this discontinuation of a bursary that means so much to me and others, quite literally impacting the quality of life that I can lead in Edinburgh. So this is quite a nice segue for me to now be a bit more personal about my own experiences. My educational journey has been quite complicated. I didn't come out of university as, I didn't come to university rather as a wide-eyed 18-year-old, as I thought I would, but quite a terrified 19-year-old, straight out of full-time employment as a waitress. And when telling people I took a gap year in Freshers Week, I was sort of met with the meme of gap year, if anybody's seen that horrible video. But I never really went into detail about the fact that I actually took a year off after leaving school because I was suffering from PTSD and subsequent memory loss following bereavement. And I'm really not saying that to evoke any kind of empathy, but to lend a voice, I hope, to anyone who just has life happen to them when they're young, but then struggles with the dichotomy of not being defined by your circumstance, but being proud of who you are because of your circumstances. So when I decided to work full time, I didn't want to give up on my literal life aim of going to university. And so I still pinch myself that I'm here. And I will forever say that it is the honor of my life to be here. Because at several points prior to arriving and many occasions at university, I thought it was never going to happen or that I was just going to have to drop out. So for these reasons, I found first year hard. I wanted to fit in socially and I wanted to fit in academically, but I struggled with both of those things. I used to study economics and politics, and I really struggled with the elitist setup of the School of Economics in particular, which is plagued with academic arrogance. And also because I just wanted to fit in, which was hard to do because of the circumstances under which I was now at university. Also, a lot of people were just asking questions that I didn't fully understand. For example, and I find this story quite funny, but I was asked if the Tudor family tree pinned on my walls in halls of residence, because I am a self-confessed history geek, I was asked if it was the family tree depicting the history of my ancestors, to which I think I spat out the Budweiser I was drinking when I realised he was asking that question seriously. But I also found my people at Edinburgh University, and I found them through the Labour Club. And I want to stay clear of any partisan rhetoric because, but I can't really shy away from the fact I met my best friends through the Labour Society. But one of such friends helped us find my voice, essentially. I was asked by this friend, Jane, if I wanted to write a play and incorporate my songwriting into it. And we could potentially see if one of the university societies would let us take it to Fringe. Now, and she won't mind me saying this, as she's now a teacher, so it's very fitting. But Jane is an individual that radiates confidence so much that she makes you believe you can do anything. And I very much used to be someone who had an idea and immediately dismissed it because I believed I was either too stupid or it was financially impractical, which obviously that concern hasn't really gone away. But what I want to stress here is that good friends are sometimes the confidence that we lack in ourselves. So we wrote a play and we wrote it based upon my family history. So it was based on the working class women of my immediate family, my mum, my nana, my grandma. And I interviewed them all for it, and everyone but my grandma got to see it. And by this point in my life, I had toured as a musician and I had self-released songs, but taking the show we wrote called Twice Over to Fringe, made possible by a student theatre society, it made me realise who I was and what I came from. And people listened. Some people, especially within the student theatre community, romanticised and almost fetishised the story in me because I was someone talking about something as exciting and as rare as social class. And I've written on my little page of notes here, insert big eye roll. So I'll just do that for dramatic effect. But actually the majority of people listened to the story we'd written. And that is a massive privilege in itself to be heard. And then from then it felt like an avalanche of beginning to understand why I had been feeling so inadequate at university. And this was key to why I joined Tackling Elitism. I worked part-time for my Students' Association on the bars throughout my first and second year. And from doing the show and writing about the microaggressions of classism we might experience, some of which was set in a bar in the play, I realised these were probably based off experience. And when I think back to my achievements within the music and theatre industries, and I'm conscious of framing this in a way which equates sort of validation with critical success, and I don't mean to do that, but I'd rather hope to get across instead that there is an audience and critical respect out there for stories alternative to the status quo. So the recognition and critical achievement I have received has been because of an honesty about my history and community. For example, and this is major name dropping, but Twice Over, which was the play we brought to Fringe, received 4 stars from Scotland's largest national newspaper, The Scotsman. And back in 2018, I wrote a score for a film documenting the work of South Shields shipyard women, which won an International Focal Film Award. And both of these big national achievements motivate me to be grassroots focused so that communities like the one I come from back home can reap the reward in terms of passing on the confidence that comes from these big events, passing on the experiences and exposure to different forms of social capital. And these examples demonstrate to me, and I'm so pleased this was mentioned previously, but that phrasing should potentially not be social mobility, but perhaps something more on the lines of social opportunity. I'm immensely grateful for the experiences to gain this national recognition, but both of these experiences came from community involvement, grant-based projects and higher education. So creating and sustaining opportunities for individuals to access all of these 3 things and more is what I want to dedicate my life to doing. Okay, I will hurry up because I think I've got like a minute left. But basically at the minute, what I'm doing now is I'm using these parts of my identity and implementing them into my degree and hopefully my career. I'm currently undertaking a research project in examining social inequalities and arts participation at the University of Edinburgh, analytically assessing the widened participation student framework as part of that research. And I really want to focus on tackling elitism to do all I can for current and future widened participation students, as well as learning and acknowledging my privilege from other students involved in this collective. So finally, I can talk about class-based issues and social inequalities all day long, but I wanted to plug Tackling Elitism one last time. Please get involved if you're a student at the University of Edinburgh, or follow us if you're not and want to keep updated. If you're wanting to learn more and engage with the group as a general member, and or if you would like a safe space to discuss your experiences as a widened participation student, if this would be beneficial to you. To me, Tackling Elitism allows for nuance and exploring complexities within our identities, backgrounds, and upbringings. It's not just a space where we discuss class, which is centered on a traditional white 1980s depiction of the working class, because we are all so much more than any stereotype, which is not representative of the diversity of our membership and discussions. So our stories are important. They're not to be romanticized, but to be told and to have the opportunity to be heard. Thank you.